A wake-up call, Saturday 9th to Monday 11th, 2023. Before we start, we want to make some points clear as a disclaimer. Number one, this conference is not political. We are not playing politics. And that is very important because of some people who read politics into everything. We are not a political party. We are not playing politics. We are not representing a political interest. What we are doing is prayer mobilization and awareness for Nigerian Christians. Number two, we are not attempting to rubbish or discredit the religious belief of other citizens of Nigeria, or in any way discredit any individual. That is equally very important. Number three, what we are doing is a Christian endeavor, seeking to provide solutions to topical issues confronting Christendom in Nigeria. We are responding to challenges facing the church, and we have the right to do that. We are Christians. Not just Christendom in Nigeria, but globally. Number four, no one was paid to organize or to participate in this conference. I was not paid. Professor Contain was not paid. And none of the brethren attending tonight was given money to go and join the crowd. Our motive is pure. Unto the pure all things are pure, but unto them that are defiled and unbelieving is nothing pure. But you know, we need to do this disclaimer because of some of our Christian brethren. Primarily, not because of unbelievers, primarily because of some of our Christian brethren. Thank you. Now, the purpose of the conference, a brief background. In the wake of the declaration of an OIC resolution on 21st October 2023 at Freedom Park in Ojota, a delegation of Muslim groups led by Professor Isama Ishanu of the Usman Dan Fodio University, Sokoto, came to Lagos to read a resolution of OIC. And then, considering the unconstitutional inclusion of Nigeria by the British government in the list of Muslim nations to intervene in the Israel-Hamas war, we feel on this altar that it becomes necessary to remind Christians, for the purpose of prayers, the origin of politics of religion in Nigeria. What is disturbing Nigeria today? Brethren, it is not corruption. We will get there as we go on in this presentation. Corruption is not our problem. Corruption is a diversion. It's a distraction. Insecurity is a diversion. I'm not saying those problems are not there. They are there. The real problem of Nigeria, which we must resolve, is the politics of religion. And that politics of religion is summed up in the dual conflicting ideology of Sharia and democracy in Nigeria. That is our problem. And many Christians do not know. And so long as you don't know, you will be chasing shadows. People are saying if Nigeria can just combat corruption, everything will be. No, corruption is not the problem. Corruption has come to be because of that conflict between Sharia and democracy. On 14th November, a few days ago, Punch newspaper carried the news that the Nigerian foreign minister Yusuf Tuga, announced Nigeria's inclusion in an OIC delegation to mediate in the war between Israel and Hamas. Other countries in that delegation include Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Egypt, Qatar, Turkey, Indonesia, and Nigeria, and of course Palestine. The question is, what is Nigeria doing in this group? The mere inclusion of Nigeria in this group speaks volumes. The mandate of this group, put together by OIC and the Arab League, not just the OIC and the Arab League, the mandate includes any other interested countries and the Secretary General of both organizations to initiate immediate international action on behalf of all member states of the OIC and the Arab League to formulate an international move to halt the war in Gaza. We have no objection to delegations seeking to mediate in halting the war, stopping the killing, stopping the destruction. We totally support that. What we are concerned about is the implication of this delegation on the secularity of Nigerian state, according to Section 10 of our Constitution. By virtue of Section 10 of our Constitution, Nigeria must not be part of this group. Putting Nigeria in this group, you are telling something. Those who put Nigeria in this group are telling the whole world something. Something that is inconsistent with what we citizens know Nigeria to be. We move to the next slide. The UK Foreign Minister, David Cameron, met with foreign ministers, please note that, of Arab and Islamic states. David Cameron met with foreign ministers of Arab and Islamic states. And the states are listed: Saudi Arabia, Saudi Foreign Minister; Jordan, Egypt, the Palestinian Authority, Turkey, Indonesia, and Nigeria, and Secretary General of the Arab League. Now, if you look at the picture, the arrow is pointing at the Foreign Affairs Minister of Nigeria. This came out 22nd November 2023. The question all of us have to ask is, again, what is Nigeria doing in the delegation? And the second question, what happened to Section 10 of the Constitution? The issue we are facing in Nigeria, and this is very, very critical for those of us who are Christians. The issue we are discussing tonight is basically a constitutional issue. Section 10 of the Constitution says the government of the federation or of a state shall not adopt any religion as state religion. That is the Constitution. The government of the federation, the federal government, or a state government shall not adopt any religion as state religion. Now, you are putting Nigeria in an OIC delegation. An OIC delegation of OIC member states and Islamic states. And the Constitution says the government shall not adopt any religion as state religion. So there is an issue here. The Constitution is saying one thing, the government is doing one thing. How do we resolve it? This is not an issue between Christianity and Islam. This has nothing to do. Don't allow anybody to drag you into an emotional argument, into an emotional contention that this matter, Christianity and Islam has to resolve it. Christians are resisting. No, it has nothing to do with between Christianity and Islam. It is purely an issue between the federal government and the Constitution. And we need to retain this issue at this level. We need to sustain the dialogue, the conversation at this level, that this matter is between the federal government and the Constitution. Is the government violating the Constitution or not? If you go the route of is between Christianity and Islam, you will never come out of the contention. And I can tell you, you will never solve the problem. United Kingdom must be cautioned against fermenting constitutional crisis in Nigeria. The government of United Kingdom has no right. They have no right. By virtue of our constitution, they have no right to convene a meeting of OIC and Islamic State and put Nigeria there. So, we can safely say, unless anybody comes to prove otherwise convincingly, that every action of Nigeria in that delegation is null and void. It is unconstitutional. Whoever is doing it is not representing Nigeria. We have an issue because this matter should have been taken up at higher level by church leaders. But we need to realize that our weakness right now is Christian leadership. A vibrant Christian leadership should have taken up this issue before small groups like ours now begin to take it up. Now let's make progress and go into the Word of God and look at what God said. As we start this teaching, as we start this presentation rather, brethren, we are going to share some things that may cause some of us to be worried concerning the state of the church, concerning the survival of Christianity. But I want to assure you that God has given us an assurance. And this was in December 2018. God said he will not hand Nigeria over to Islam. So any plan of anybody, any conspiracy, whether international or local, to make Nigeria an Islamic state, it will not succeed. However, we must not be complacent. However, we must not be indifferent. We must not be without knowledge. We must not lack understanding. That's why we need to look at what happened before, what is happening right now, and what has been planned to happen, so that we will even appreciate what God has done for us as Nigerian church. This word, Luke chapter 19, verses 41 to 44, came in 2013, shortly after God gave a word that if care is not taken, in 30 to 40 years, Nigeria will be like Turkey. We want to thank God for all the intercessors who held on to God. The intercessors who prayed and stood with God. And by 2018, God spoke and said, all right, I will not hand your country over. Because the church has done certain things that are very provocative to heaven. And the church is still doing it. May the Lord bring revival. Luke chapter 19 verse 41. And when he was come near, he beheld the city and wept over it, saying, if thou hast known, even thou, at least in this thy day, the things which belong unto thy peace, but now they are hid from thine eyes. For the days shall come upon thee, that thine enemies shall cast a trench about thee, and compass thee round, and keep thee in on every side, and shall lay thee even with the ground, and thy children within thee, and they shall not live in thee one stone upon another, because thou knewest not the time of thy visitation. This word came in 2013. And it was received by Professor Vincent Anigbogu, the same man who received the message concerning Turkey. And God says, Nigerian church, be careful that you do not miss divine visitation. As we go along, we shall share what happened in 2019. And by 2019, we missed divine visitation. As of 2013, when God was talking, he was preparing the church for the 2015 election. Warning the church not to take certain steps, not to make certain mistakes. Because if they make those mistakes in 2015, the church will jeopardize the visitation in 2019. Of course, the church did what it should not do in 2014, as well as in 2015. And 2019 went by. Let's now move to understanding the enemy and understanding the battle. Many of us, or not many of us, all of us are aware of the devastation that Boko Haram has caused in Nigeria. We are aware of the atrocities of Fulani headsmen. We are in anguish about what the bandits are doing. And then globally, we hear of ISIS, Al-Qaeda, Hamas, Hezbollah, and so on and so forth. All manners of Islamic terrorist groups. But we may not fully understand what is going on. Where is it coming from? And why are these things happening? We go back to the year 1928. Interestingly, the book of Revelation talks about the beast that was wounded unto death, and its deadly wound was healed, and the world wondered after the beast. Now that's what we are going to explain now. In 1928, March, in a village called Ismaila in Egypt, a group of Muslims met. They were led by a man named Hassan al-Banna. And they founded what is called the Islamic Brotherhood. The Islamic Brotherhood is the umbrella organization for every terrorist organization that is operating in the world. Their action was in response to something that took place in Turkey in 1924. In 1924, Mustafa Kemal Atatürk, the leader of Turkey, he was called Atatürk, the father of the Turks. He decided to dismantle the Ottoman Caliphate and embrace Western civilization so that Turkey can make progress and attain a higher level of civilization. That decision of Mustafa Kemal did not go down well with some fundamental Muslims, and they felt that he betrayed Islam. So 4 years later, led by Hassan al-Banna, they held a meeting in Ismaila in 1928 and founded the Islamic Brotherhood. In establishing the Islamic Brotherhood, they had two objectives. Number one, to implement Sharia worldwide, global Sharia worldwide. Number two, to re-establish the global Islamic state known as the Caliphate. Those are the two goals. And everything they've been doing since then has been in furtherance of these two objectives. Make sure Sharia becomes the ideology worldwide, global ideology. You see, Sharia is not just a system of law. It is not just a court. It is an ideology, a political ideology. The way democracy is an ideology. Socialism is an ideology. Communism is an ideology. The crisis we are having in Nigeria is that Sharia wants to supplant democracy. And if you look at the way Nigeria is being run now, we are just paying lip service to democracy. Nigeria is being run under Sharia. When you look critically at the 2023 election, that is Sharia. It's not democracy. And you know that the caliphate has been in Nigeria now for over 200 years, engaging in all manners of moves to dominate the country. We will get to that as we progress. Now, this is the creed of the Islamic Brotherhood. When they started, it is on your screen. This is the creed. Allah is our objective. The Quran is our law. The Prophet is our leader. Jihad is our way. And death for the sake of Allah is the highest of our aspirations. That is the creed of the Brotherhood. So you can understand the mindset of suicide bombers. You can understand the mindset of the jihadists. And you can understand the mindset of the leader of Islam in Nigeria who went to Harvard in USA and said publicly, I do not believe in any Nigerian constitution. The only constitution I believe in is the Quran. You can understand where the mindset is coming from. This is what the church is up against. The Brotherhood operates through violent jihad, as in the case of Boko Haram, Fulani herdsmen, Hamas, Hezbollah, Al-Qaeda, ISIS, and then through what is called civilization or stealth jihad. Now, this is the one that is more dangerous, the stealth jihad. And stealth jihad is propelled by what is known as the interfaith movement, in which the Christian and Muslim leaders will sit down, they will talk peace. The Muslim will give them all manners of assurance that no, there will be no problem. We are for peace. We are not for violence. And the Christians will go home believing everything that they heard. Stealth jihad. Most of our church leaders have been recruited under stealth jihad. They now work against the church. They now work in furtherance of the agenda of the Islamic Brotherhood, but they believe that they are being broad-minded, they are civilized, they are being considerate. They do not realize they have become stealth jihadists. It is stealth jihad that has taken Europe for Islam. America is the one they are fighting tooth and nail to take now, but they've taken Europe. It is stealth jihad. They didn't fire one bullet, but they took Europe. They've taken Britain. They've taken Germany. They've taken France. It is under stealth jihad. And you need to be aware of the main tool of stealth jihad. It is called Taqiyya. 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 Taqiyya is approved deception in Islam. A Muslim can tell you lie, knowing that he's telling you lie, if that lie will further the cause of Islam. He can even tell you he's a Christian. He can tell you he's born again. He can follow you to church and recite the sinner's prayer. He can do everything with you, but he's stuck here. Christians need to be aware. Someone told me in northern Nigeria and said the easiest way to understand what a Muslim tells you when you are dealing with this issue is just take it that whatever he says is the exact opposite of the truth. Then you will understand what he's saying. I hope somebody will understand that. So, the Brotherhood has two major enemies, so to say. Israel and Christians. Now, we are not saying we are going to hate Muslims, please. And as we go on, we will also explain the difference between Islam and Islamism. You need to note one thing. When the Brotherhood started in 1928, there was no nation of Israel. Israel was re-established in 1948. But today, Israel is the number one enemy. Now, we move on to the next slide. And that is Islamic Brotherhood and Western civilization. Apart from targeting Israel and Christians, the Brotherhood aims to dismantle two critical institutions. The first one is Western civilization, which it traces to a Judeo-Christianity ideology. That's why when they leave Middle East and they get to Europe and they get to America, they start condemning the Western civilization. And you wonder, if you hate Western civilization so much, then why did you leave your country? They left because the agenda is to make sure Western civilization is dismantled. Then number two, democracy. Democracy. The liberty, the freedom of choice, the freedom of expression is something that are on target. We've mentioned that it expresses itself through Al-Qaeda, Taliban, Al-Shabaab, al-Nusra, and so on and so forth. It was the Islamic Brotherhood that created Islamism, which is different from Islam. We need to note that Islamism is different from Islam. Islam is a religion. Islamism is not a religion. Islamism is an ideology. It is an ideology that states wherever Islam is, Islam must dominate. I will say that again. Islamism is not a religion. It is a political ideology. Islam is a religion. The thin line between the two is very thin because both are based on the Quran. I will give you a very good example. The Muslim in Yoruba land, in the southwest of Nigeria, practices Islam as a religion. The Muslim in northern Nigeria practices Islam as Islamism. That is why the southwest brand of religion is moderate, accepts peaceful coexistence with other religions. Christians are here, traditionalists are here, even those that are not from Nigeria, Hare Krishna, Baha'i faith, they are all here. In the north, even for Christians to go and build a church in some areas in the north, they won't even give you land. And if you build the church, just know that any moment you can be attacked. You can't go to the north and say you want to go and do open crusade. Why? Because it is Islamism over there. Christians need to be aware that these two brands of Islam is operating in Nigeria. Islam as religion, Islam as political ideology. The difference between both. The myriad of problems that face Nigeria can be traced to Islamism, also called political Islam, radical Islam, or activist Islam. Is a political religious ideology that is opposed to a simple belief in Islam. Islamism demands that 1, society should be reconstructed in line with the religious principles and ideals of Islam. 2, the modern secular state should be replaced by an Islamic state in which religious principles and authority have primacy over other political principles and authority. And 3, that the West and Western values are corrupt, justifying for some the notion of a jihad against them. However, distinctive Sunni and Shia versions of Islamism have developed, the former linked to Wahhabism, the latter to Iran's Islamic Revolution. You can find that in the book Political Ideologies, an introduction. Nigeria is currently being reconstructed. There is an attempt to reconfigure Nigeria to become a caliphate. That is the struggle now. Things that are being done, election rigging, compromise of the judiciary, compromise of INEC, are all intentional actions. Brethren, these things are not mistakes. These things are not the result of greedy politicians. No, These things are intentionally planned to undermine democracy and make sure democracy collapses in Nigeria and it is replaced by Sharia. Christians need to be aware of what is going on. Everything that we went through during the 2023 election was carefully crafted. And the objective is to undermine democracy so that Nigeria will become fully Sharia compliant. There are 4 dimensions of Islamism in Nigeria. Number 1, there's a spiritual dimension. The spiritual dimension has to be countered with intensive spiritual warfare, as we have been doing on this altar. We have to come against sorcery, spell, divination, incantation, rituals, blood sacrifices, prognostication. There is a spiritual dimension. Number 2, there is ideological dimension. That is called the conflict of ideologies. Democracy ideology versus Sharia ideology. This ideological dimension should be countered with enlightenment, with unity of the church, with exposure of what is going on, and deliberate deployment of Christian doctrine of love to counter the doctrine of hate and demand for a new constitution. This is where demand for a new constitution comes in. The demand for a new constitution is strategic to dismantling what is going on or what has been planned to go on in Nigeria and what is already going on. There is the cultural dimension of Islamism in Nigeria. This cultural dimension is exemplified by the supremacist ideology of a particular ethnic group in Nigeria. You know, there are 2 factors that are known to be fueling the crisis in Nigeria. One is the doctrine of hate. The other is the supremacist ideology, in which an ethnic group in Nigeria has affirmed publicly that it is born to rule. And a particular culture that is not indigenous to Nigeria believes that it is supreme to every other culture. The dimension is such that the traditional ruler of this group has become the permanent president of the National Association of Traditional Rulers, over and above thrones that have been in Nigeria before they came in 200 years ago. Over and above the Oni of Ife, the Alaafin of Oyo, the Tortiv, the Obi of Onitsha, the Oba of Benin. It is a cultural dimension of Islamism, domination. And then there is the political dimension. And that political dimension is what we are beginning to see now in APC. And that was why God warned in 2014, don't allow APC to form government. You will notice that in every state during governorship election, if APC should lose election in that state, a rerun is contrived. APC will disagree, and then a rerun will be contrived. That state will be compelled to do a rerun. And once the rerun is done, the judiciary will give it to APC. In the 2023 election, you remember the situation is in Kano. It is in Nasarawa. It is in Plateau. I think in Delta, there is another state, whether it's Zamfara. Once APC loses, they go to court. If the court does not give outright victory, they will call for a rerun. And once they do the rerun, usually APC will take that state. It is all in preparation for one-party state. I think I will stop here tonight so we can have time to pray. We still have tomorrow. Sorry, let me take something back. Prof, you want to say something?
No, sir. You can close us properly, sir.
Yes, sir. I want to go back to the slide so that we can pray. The next segment we are about to get to is to talk about the British conspiracy in what we are talking about. The conspiracy of the British. And it started in 1903. But we will continue tomorrow by the grace of God. So this is where we will stop for tonight. We will continue from the British conspiracy as from tomorrow. Let me move the slide forward and go to the prayer point so that we can at least have time to pray tonight before we go. Just a second, brethren. All right. Okay. The purpose we are here is to pray. Our first prayer point, I'm going to unmute us, brethren, and then we shall pray. We'll take that for the next 10 minutes, and we'll continue tomorrow by the grace of God.